So if you have one of these old trigger housing that have the contacts pop up and require the selector plate to hit them, like this, what happens is that over time these usually bend away. So what I did was I cut them off and then I flattened with a hammer and put it in between here to connect the two, and then I just screwed it back down. So now you have removed that flaw. It's very simple, very quick. You could even remove material from here. However, from my experience, when you remove this contact, sometimes there's not enough applied pressure and this will move too much off this area right here. So I don't tend to like to touch that. Instead, what I did was just cut off one of these and flattened it and then put it in there and screwed it in. Now you can see from a close-up that it's not the greatest. Let's see if we can get this close up here. And even though I checked with a multimeter and the resistance, it shows a good connection, but it should be applied with solder. So I'm going to lightly put solder that connects the two plates together, and then screw it back on this piece that holds them together. Now I did have to cut this piece outside with the Dremel, and I used a vise to hold it very steady while I cut it quickly. I'm going to go ahead and take apart the top of this to show you how small the contact is now. So you can see the contact that I had in between there so that it could fit. You could, I guess, shave down a little bit of this area of the plastic to help push it down a little bit more. So how do you solder this to here? You want to apply lightly. What I recommend is some flux, electrical flux here, in here, and a very small amount of solder so that it just leaves a very small layer. And then the same thing on this and on both sides. Not both sides, just one side on both edges. And then flipping this over, putting it on top, and heating the top area should melt it together very quickly. We're talking less than a second really, because this is a very small amount of solder. And push down on it, and it should hold right in position. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Alright, so after soldering it, see a thin layer, and then screw it, but do not screw it very, very tight because you can crack solder, especially if it's soft. Okay, so flip it over and test it. See if we've got a solid connection here. Just a second, I gotta get touch there, and there we go. So that's how you would put it together with just using its own connection, or its own parts I should say. So I just cut those pins off, flattened one out, applied some electrical flux, some solder, and bridged the connection together.